กฤษไม่ได้ภาษาไทยได้พูดภาษาอังกฤษหรือภาษาไทยค่ะค่ะภาษาไทยก็ได้เลยค่ะจะเรียนภาษาไทย
อันนี้ครับจริงๆผมไม่ค่อยถนัดในการเริ่มสนทนา นะครับแต่ว่าก็เนื่องจากสัปดาห์ที่แล้วเป็นวันมาฆบูชาครับก็ได้พอดีมีโอกาสได้ฟังไม่เท่าไหร่นะครับเรื่องของธรรมะที่เกี่ยวข้องกับโอวาทปาติโมกข์นะครับถ้าเป็นไปได้ก็อยากจะ สนทนาในเรื่องว่าจริงๆแล้วโอวาทปาติโมกข์ทำไมถึงเรียกว่าโอวาทปาติโมกข์แล้วมันแปลว่าอะไรหรืออะไรเงี้ยครับจริงๆแล้วผมก็ยังไม่เข้าใจเท่าไหร่
คุณสุขินนะคะ
โอ้ถ้าผมก็ไม่รู้ โอ้คนที่ไม่เข้าใจภาษาไทยมาแล้วคนหนึ่ง Eve
If I can I speak it?
speaking
Yeah, you would like to know a little bit about Makapuja. On that day, it's about 10 months.
He says he doesn't know what Ovada Patimokkha.
Oh, that's what I was going to explain. There is about 10 months after the Buddha died, there are 4 factors that were considered amazing. The Buddha, of course, preached, as you said, the Ovada. Ovada is the speaking or the sharing of the Patimokkha or the training of the Dhamma, which is those very famous verses, Sabbapapasara Karanam, Kusalasa Upasambada, Sachita Parayodapanam, Etana Buddhana Sasanam, which is this is the teaching of all the Buddhas, not just this Buddha, but all the Buddhas, Buddhana. So there were 4 things. He preached that also. All those bhikkhus who were there were Ahi bhikkhu. They had been ordained by the Buddha. They were arahatta. Every one of them were arahatta. So they would have understood very clearly the significance of those words, because each one leads into the next one. They're not like do this and do this and do this. It's all part of the same teaching, all together. They all come together. It was a full moon day of Magha, which is a month of January, February, the full moon day of months, January, February. There's another factor that's called the Chaturanga. It's got a special name for it. But it was, but the main significance was, and it said it was 10 months after the Buddha was enlightened. And it's those 3 days in Thailand, what's called Magha, which is the month, and you've got another Asalha Puja, which is the rains retreat, just before the rain. And I believe the word Asalha, you get the word Sal, which is the shed or the building relating to the rains, and Visakha Puja. They're the 3 main events usually during a year that are really considered very important. I'm just trying to think of any other things that were significant for Magha Puja, but it relates to that.
But they all came by chance with no appointment.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it's one of the kind of amazing things. There's a Thai word, Naasajan. Naasajan. Yeah. So it's an amazing thing that they came together on that time. 1,250 bhikkhus who were all arahatas. Yeah, that's essentially a lot about it. But there's always more, and if I think of anything, I can let you know.
Thank you very much for your explanation. And however, I still don't quite really understand the word Patimokkha. what does it really? Yeah, Ovata, I kind of understand that it's a teaching, right? It's, yeah.
The patimokkha, which means moksha, is freedom, that which leads to freedom.
Okay.
Moksha. You could translate it that way, yeah. The training that leads to freedom. Parti means to come close to or lead up to. Moksha or moksha is freedom, ultimately.
So it's supposed to mean freedom from the attachment. Thank you. And also, there's a part of the Ovata Patimokkha. It's about not doing the bad deeds. Papa. What? Bab. Yeah. When bab. And in which aspects of that papa did the Lord Buddha really wanted to talk about? I mean, like all of the bad deeds, or some levels of the bad deeds. Or
Ajarn will speak to that, I think, really well. But it's all completely, Sabba means all. Papassa is of all. Sabba passa. Akaranam, not to do all. And then, of course, to do the good. But it's not an injunction. The Buddha never gave an injunction, do not do. He gave the injunction to understand. And through understanding, you will not do.
so it's the right understanding to avoid all the sapapap.
Yeah, and Ajarn last week, she talked to those three aspects of Upanasya Gochara. You remember she was talking about Upanasya Gochara,
Yes.
which leads to Araka Gochara, which leads to Upanibandha. So the more understanding grows, one has a correct understanding of what object that appears at the parayati level, and then applies that understanding to the truth of the present moment, which will lead to protection. The more that understanding grows, rakha, in Thai you've got the word rakha, raksa, yeah, of course, raksha, which is the same word, but means strong, rakha. Rakha means very strong protection. And then upanibandha, which means very strongly bound to the object of understanding. So one leads on to the other, and then further on to Sotapati, eventually to Sotapati Magga and beyond.
During this morning's discussion, I heard we're talking about Banyati. Yeah, Banyati. And about Atta Banyat and Sata Banyat. I didn't quite understand that, and I'm wondering if you can talk a bit about that.
It's the meaning. And Sata is a sound, the meaning of the sound, and the meaning of the appearance. How do you know that this is what it is? By shape and form.
By shape and form, and
that is Atta
okay,
Banyati.
Atta Banyati.
And Sata, the sound, which represents the meaning of whatever you are talking about.
Do you mean the word that I'm
The
talking
word.
about?
The sound is Sata, but Banyati is what you what it make known as this or that by
Okay.
different sound, different tones.
Right.
I mean, the word can be written also,
Yes.
but when it's satta, it's the spoken.
Oh, okay. Is that right? Satta is the spoken word.
Satta means sound.
Satta means sound. Okay. Okay. And if it's the atta, as you were saying, that's the
Atta.
atta. Atta.
So, like
Atta.
glass is the saddha,
Banyati.
bandhati, and without naming it, you know
Right.
that's this shaped form.
Yes.
That's glass. That's
Atta.
atta.
And that's
Banyati.
atta, and that comes from seeing, from visual.
From visual or touch or anything, depends.
Oh,
Even
dep-
memory. No?
Even if you're blind, you touch the or you say table, right? So the word table is saddha panyati, but through that body sense, that concept which is thought about through the body sense is the atha.
Not
So it
through
doesn't
the
have to be visible object. It can be
It's the shape and form of,
Not through the body sense,
No.
but based
based on the body sense. Yeah,
it's based on the body sense.
right. Isn't it?
Or the sound,
Or
different sound.
No, I'm saying that for us, with when
Atta
I talk,
banya.
when we point to the glass, it's based on seeing.
Yes.
But for a blind person, it's based on touch. So that the meaning that is got from the touch, the thinking that follows the touch, that's atha, and the word glass, because the blind person can also use the word glass.
Can it be even through the nose and the smell?
Yes, yeah.
Yes. It can be atta banyat and
Yes,
satta banyat.
yes.
When we don't use any word to represent it.
Okay.
Like the smell of mango, before you
Right.
say it's
Mm.
mango, you know that it's mango. You know.
And
Atapanya.
Ajahn, but when we use the word without only in the mind, because the mind has also words. When I think about the word glass,
That is panyati from the sound, and the appearance of the sound is different. So what it make known as this or that is panyati. When I say mango, you think of what? And when I say orange, you think differently. So the sound makes it known as this and that differently.
so when it's in the mind, it's only you only call it panjati.
Sanya, remember, and citta, experience, is the chief of experiencing an object, and the other depends on different cetasikas, like sanya, remember, and mark. So when it's marked, you think about that. And that is depending on what doorway.
Yes. So if it was from the eye door, it would be
Shape and form.
shape and form, and it was from the, what have we got
Body
left?
sense.
The body sense. It would be from,
When there is seeing,
From
why do you
touch.
think of body sense?
pardon?
When it's seeing, why do you think of body sense?
when-
No,
Say
I'm
for
changing
blind-
from seeing to body sense.
For example, in the case of blind people, even they have atha panyati and saddha panyati. They experience atha in the sense through the body, what it is through the
Then
body.
it's known as something like soft or hard, as cake or rice
Right.
or what.
So atha, that's atha panyati?
Yes,
That's
yeah.
what,
No sound.
no sound.
Okay, so it's based on whether or not there's sound or sight. Or let's take smell, which is easier, because you're not going to touch smell.
Hmm.
So if it's smell, then it's atta when,
Before the word,
before the word comes to mind.
yeah.
Just
Before the
mark.
word. Sorry, just one.
The smell, you can tell what smell is
Right.
from.
From memory of it,
Yes, of.
of the smell,
different smells.
a different smell.
Yes, this smell, that smell. So
Yes, yes, yes. There's a memory of, so there's the memory of that particular smell will come to mind.
and that is atta.
Atta.
Without sound, it is atta.
Okay, and with sound, it's
It is satta.
Satta. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's getting better.
Actually, even when I said the written word, because all written words would not come into existence without first through sound. There wouldn't be the word written table if there was not initiated by communication through word.
Mm.
Right? Everything starts from sound.
Except for somebody who can't hear.
No, right. But even in that case, he would call it, even if he reads someone without hearing, he would be able to identify that. But that word originally came from sound,
Yes.
right?
Yep. Yes.
Because all language starts from sound.
Yes. Yes, it has to.
When I say rice and rose, see, rose,
Rose, rice, different sounds.
different sound. And it brings about the idea of different things.
And it's memory. It's sanya, which knows which one, which memory it is.
All by sanya.
All by sanya, yeah.
And the Satabanyat is when you can recognize the sound of someone or something, like
Okay.
the bird sound, the dog sound, like that.
No, that is still atta. That is still
That's not
atta.
Satabanyat.
But the difference tone of the word, the sound, makes one think about what? Of
Of the
atta.
Atabanyat.
Yes. Okay, when I say roti, what do you think?
Roti.
see,
Some
see,
delicious
see,
cuisine.
it depends. See,
Something one.
I don't think something. I think something you eat with dal.
Can I ask? Actually, your name is really Roti or not?
Rodrigo.
Ah, Rodrigo.
but if I don't know about roti and the other thing, it's just that which is heard. No idea.
Right.
No atta banjat, only satta banjat.
So Satabanyat is what is heard, and Atabanyat is read.
Like you learn
or-
a new language.
Yes.
I'll give you a new word. Kapada.
Okay.
Kapada. It is Sadapanya for you because you know I'm
Yes.
saying,
Yes.
but it is meaningless because you can't
Right,
imagine.
I have nothing, no memory
association.
to associate it with,
Right.
yeah. Okay.
But when you say that and you don't know what it's called, it is atta banjat.
It's Atabanyat. That's a good example. That's a good example.
It's a Hindi word.
Yeah, it means clothes or cloths.
I was just thinking further about that Patimokkha, because that's the pure Patimokkha. And later on, because of a kusala, the different bhikkhus broke different rules. Then they had to have more of the other kind of Patimokkha that we know of, those 227 rules, because, Parajika, Sangati Sesa, and so on, because monks behaved improperly. So it just, the Patimokkha became more and more. But initially, with the Arahata, it did not need, because they would always do good. That's their nature at that time.
the role of nimitta in this process of the satapanya?
Nimitta comes before.
So,
Yes.
because somehow I remember that nimitta is necessary to come up with shape and form. So I'm trying to make the connection between the direct experience, the nimitta, and then the
Is
sata or
that which,
atapanya.
yeah, is that which appear as, not is it. For example now, seeing appears,
Yeah.
but not just only one moment. It's the nimitta, the succession of the seeing, and what appears is only the appearance, the succession, not the one, which arise and fall away. Even touching, the rupa which is touched, is not just only one particle or unit at all, but it appears as hard, that which is hard, but many rupa arising and falling away. So
it takes
hardness
many of
appear as
the
nimitta,
to
yes,
lead to the
or
panyati.
appear as nimitta. No matter it is Vedana feeling, not just a moment, many moments in succession, condition that which can
But-
appear.
And the nimitta can be of one moment, but it takes many of them.
Right. Mhm. So everything appears as nimitta in one's life, not just one.
Ajahn just used the word particle. Does that mean moment? One particle?
That which
Oh.
cannot be broken at all.
So talking about the rupas, right?
The rupa. And also the nama appears as nimitta. Everything appears as nimitta.
I think what Ajarn means is that you cannot know one rupa, or you cannot know one
Citta.
chitta. It has to be many.
The succession of those make a nimitta, and
Right.
that's the only thing that can be known.
But
Right.
just now, Aina was pointing to the fact that even each one is nimitta, right?
Yes.
Each one.
Each one. Each one what?
From one moment of seeing, there's one nimitta, but there's many nimitta
Seeing.
that make a panyati. It takes many nimitta to make a panyati.
Yeah, exactly.
And therefore also a many nimitta to make as the basis for shape and form. That's right. You wouldn't get the idea of
Even though the meaning of form, there is also nimitta. Shape is nimitta, form is details. But that we can understand that even that nimitta is actually many nimittas, right, Ajarn? Nimitta and anuprayanchana. That is actually many nimittas.
Sorry, you used another word. I don't know what is it.
Nimitta and anuprayanchana.
Anu.
The shape and form.
Oh,
Not
that's
the shape and form. The
Following details.
Detail.
form
Detail.
and details. Yeah,
Mm.
details.
Following details.
Huh?
Following details.
Following details.
That means relating to that. I think when he says, uses the word following, it means that the details of related to that nimitta, right? Yeah.
Can we just say the details? Because the details is also nimitta. In detail.
I was just thinking, perhaps you're not understanding so much when we talk about nimitta. I found what's helpful, the root of that word is ma, so it's a mark. Each experience, say by way of what appears by way of nimitta. There is the original, we can say the original experience, but we only know the nimitta, which is the mark of what has appeared. So it's, might be helpful.
Thank you.
But not just one mark.
Yes.
Many.
Many marks.
Yeah, the root in Pali is ma, and I believe that's where we get the English word mark
But
from.
then we are confusing with sanya again, because sanya, we say the function of sanya is mark.
It's a different one. Yeah.
Even sanya itself is nimitta.
It has nimitta. It's on every
Not
Dhamma
only
has-
one sanya, many
Yes,
sanyas. So we can say that we live in the world of nimitta.
Could I get some example of the... Hello? I think it's on.
You touch like this and you know.
Okay.
Oh,
No.
nah.
The example of nimitta of sanya, like
Yes.
it's like something when you memorize several times something and then it comes.
I think it's hard to say anything about.
Just
sanya.
one word. Just one word is nimitta.
Okay.
But there must be many. 7 jhavanas. Think about that.
Actually, Ajarn, it's hard to say anything about nimitta of sanya, because sanya is marking, and it is marking, and we're thinking with the mark. So it's hard
And
to
it
understand
marks and
nimitta.
marks and marks each moment.
And like it's a little bit like many moments get accumulated in one nimitta, something like that, right?
When you talk, kind of first mentioned it, so one moment of hearing the sound, and you were saying each one is a nimitta. I know you need a succession to really know.
Just
Yes.
mark how many moments?
One at a time in a succession.
Many moments,
Okay.
including the javana moment.
Okay.
See, it's there already.
So it's one at a time. in
Just one
succession.
syllable.
And you see, when sanya marks, it marks many moments also. It marks the details
One
also.
at a time, one at a time,
Means-
all together. Makes it
Sanya is there all the time. So when there's concept, sanya marks also.
sanya arises with each citta.
So it arises with the object of each citta as well?
It marks the
Yes,
object.
it marks the object because it's the object of citta. And panyat can be, panyati is often the object of citta.
So how many cittas are there now?
Uncountable.
More than that.
Plus.
Because even when we're thinking uncountable, it's so many.
That's right. Hard, unimaginable. And as Pina was saying, this leads to the attapanyat or the satapanyat that we have been talking about.
So just talk about just one word at a time.
As we turn it into a story.
I understand it's one word at a time, but isn't it more important one reality at a time? Because some words,
Table,
huh?
like table.
Even some, see?
Hmm.
How many cittas?
Hmm.
7 moments of javana, see? And many javanas.
So, Ajarn, I was thinking today the importance of understanding the different hearing about the different chittas in a process, even though it's not being experienced at the time, is to have better understanding about anatta. because especially since we are liable to take whatever appears as self. So we should know that in between there are so many things that don't appear. And without those things, there cannot be what appears.
No, Mark.
Mr. Richard.
No, Mark.
No,
No.
I understand no.
Moreที่สุด most is when we take reality for self.
Yeah. But what you said was interesting about that. There's so much we can't know.
You don't.
How about some like meaningless word like do we really call it do we also call it the satta banyati or not?
You mean to say like when you're thinking yeah. I think it can.
It can.
Yeah.
Because it has a meaning.
Sometimes it's just a
It has a
reaction,
meaning.
a habitual
Yeah.
reaction. But of course, at that time you're thinking and you're trying to find what it is. So it's giving a meaning to.
Sanya marks it already.
Yes.
But is it not atapanyat because there's no memory of that sound?
But I think the sound itself
The sound
can
itself
be
is,
the attapanya. But
yeah.
Because I notice many Thai people use that when they're speaking with each other. They'll say,
No, that's different.
That's different.
In that
Is
case
different.
means right. In that
well,
case, right.
it's still in that world of
Right.
sounds.
No. It's a different meaning. What he's talking about is a different meaning. What he's saying is when you're wondering, you think,
is like the impolite version of yes.
even the
In Thai.
even English speaking people,
Or-
right? Right.
It's more like
Not like Thai people, it's different.
Or like when you say crap, in Thai means something different than when you say crap in English, right?
well, like Canadians are known for saying a. That's pretty nice, eh? So for Canadians, that's got a meaning, but other people it wouldn't.
And we have
Oh.
Could you give some explanation? I'm not an expert in Thai language. What? Yeah, for Thai people, what is? It's really tricky. I think it depends on the context. No, I mean the.
situation.
You can also say eh when you're really angry. Like
It's like-
eh or
Doubt.
doubt. Yeah, when you sometimes when you doubt or something. But
But you're changing the tone. Ajarn said,
Yes.
Something you have just thought about.
mm,
Eh?
Start
Um,
surprise a little bit.
something that already comes up in one's mind, and I don't know, but my mother always said eh when she's angry. Like I like ask so many times and some silly things or something. It's like eh, it's like quiet already or something. Yeah. So it's really tricky word in Thai.
Are we ready to move on? Okay, this is not, I don't know. For a lot of years, we talk about, and we all say, why do we listen? Why do we study the Dhamma? Hukauchai, in order to understand, right? And it's becoming clearer that there are times when I realize that, well, the standard answer, and I think the true, sincere thought is, yes, study Dhamma in order to understand, but there are times that I'm becoming more aware of when I think, wait a minute, I was doing that for me, not for understanding.
Wait for what?
Pardon?
Wait for what?
Wait for what?
Wait for what?
I feel your expression.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did I say? I
Wait a
can't remember.
minute.
I can't remember.
Like, eh.
Yeah. But
Or oops.
yeah. Yeah, I'll just realize that I'll suddenly realize that, what I was just thinking about for them, I think I'm studying to understand, and yet sometimes I'm studying for the answers because I want the answers. So I guess that's recognizing moments of
Or just
not
thinking,
studying
or
for
just thinking,
understanding.
because you can think, because it sounds like it's just you're thinking in retrospect, whereas
So often at the time.
mhm.
Often at the time.
I mean, but it's gone, and you're
Yeah,
wondering
it's
what
gone.
what it was all about.
I
And
would
you
not.
came to the conclusion that it was, or maybe you just got a moment of wanting to know.
Yeah,
Right,
I think
yeah.
it's more like that.
Okay. Yeah, but that happens. That's to
That's
be
happened,
expected.
yeah.
That's to be expected. But of course, we can see that to understand anything that is part of our life in daily life, nama and rupa, we have to hear about it,
Mm,
right?
many times.
So the interest in studying is logical, means that you don't understand, so you need to hear and read and discuss. So not always it has to be with attachment, not for the self.
Really?
Oh, right.
Not always. Sometimes you see the value of understanding, because that's the only way to develop understanding, is to listen and to read and to. So with understanding you can be reading and discussing, isn't it, Ajarn?
So there's no asawa in those moments. No lobha asawa. So in those moments when you see the value of understanding and the value of studying, there's no lobha.
Different moments.
So there are moments when there's no.
No, that's so good.
I think that's what I was talking about. Maybe the point I was trying to make is that sometimes it is with lopa, and other times
It's with what?
it is a
what?
sincere.
With what?
With what?
Yeah, with what? When
Well,
there's no loba, what is there?
Well, that's where I'm heading.
Yeah.
There's no lopa.
Yeah.
Maybe still ignorance,
So-
perhaps still ignorance, probably still ignorance. But
Oh, of
at the
course.
time of lopa, there will be ignorance for sure, but maybe, and I don't know. I mean, it's something I don't know. Maybe a moment of understanding.
See,
Could be a moment of understanding,
let's talk
but I
about-
can't tell the
Let's
difference.
talk about the situation here. You're listening with interest to understand what's being said. So at that moment, is it loka?
I'd say no.
So same thing when you open a book.
I'd say yes.
So what is that? It's not lopa. So what is that?
Can be a moment of understanding, interest with understanding. Like you see, at that moment, I'm listening to
With
a word, an
lopa.
explanation.
With lopa.
Can be.
No, can't, you won't
Can be.
understand with Lopa.
Can be. It doesn't have to.
Yeah,
be
but
with
when
lopa.
there's no loba, what chetasika is there that makes you want to listen?
Chanda.
It can be with understanding, seeing the value of.
Is
there's
that
understanding
kusala?
which can be with kusala.
Always can be.
There must be moments of kusala. There must be moments of understanding. Intellectual understanding.
At moment of asking a question.
Not asking a question, like when you're listening with interest to something, knowing the value.
That can be kusala with understanding.
With understand, that's what I mean. Yeah. So same thing as when opening a book to read, because you know that this is the teachings, the Buddha's words. There's value in the words.
And that is the understanding.
Right. That's what I'm telling you. So there can be.
Yeah. Makes sense.
But a lot of the time it's attachment. Because attachment is still there a lot, and it attaches to everything.
Right, and I think when we liberally say listen or study to understand, it's not that there are moments of listening with lopa, there are moments of listening with chanta, and sometimes with panya as well, not lopa and chanta, kusala chanta at the same time. But it's another one of these things where you have to, now is the important part.
And of course, as Puthujanas, we have a lot of attachment. So not only when paying attention to the words, our mind is to so many things all the time, right? So many things, and in between we hear, it's almost like we hear less and think more about other things. And that in that thinking, often there's this then desire to understand. So lopa is there all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, Ajarn spoke a lot about how
Every moment.
karmasava is always leaking out. It's always seeking an opportunity to take on to something.
Like 99.999999999% of the time.
Yes.
You're talking about me.
Like us all, I think.
I'm not talking about anyone.
The asavas arise unknowingly and instantly for us after moments of seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, smelling. Thinking as well.
But
That's a question.
Ajarn often sometimes reminds us, suppose for example I'm thinking, oh, there's lots of kilesa. Ajarn reminds, it's more than that. Means that we are trying to work out from the level of understanding and so much more ignorance that there is, that this is how it is, and we're trying to arrive at a conclusion about things. And if we say, for example, oh, there's a lot of kilesa, it's much more than that. And if we say that, oh, there are moments of understanding, maybe not.
So, excuse me if this is maybe this is something I should know, but I need to hear it from somebody discuss. Do the asavas arise immediately following thinking?
What for? Thinking about this. Can it be
for
known?
only to recognize that
Here it is Lopa.
it's unknown.
It
Yeah,
is
here it is
Lopa.
Lopa, big.
Already asked about in
Yes.
thinking process.
Yes.
And
But what about the times we
it's really
think
hard
there
to
isn't
understand
any?
asava.
Sorry?
I'm saying it's really hard to understand asava. We are so,
Just to learn.
we just
about
hear
it.
the word and we're
Mhm.
trying to really understand, but it's not.
It's there.
It's there and we don't know.
Mhm.
Often we hear a word and we try to figure out what it means, and we is this asava? Is that asava?
Beyond the level of intellectual understanding.
I just would end, and we talk about the
I think it's
understanding or knowing or experience. I thought, remind me to the Bali word, you say, ya chatu, the three kind of knowing. You can knowing by vinyana, and knowing by sanya, or intellectual, and knowing by panya.
Yes.
There's three kind of that. Maybe remind us that what we are talking about.
So you're saying most of us know by sanya.
Intellectual. When we talk about right thinking.
A lot of time is just repeating words we remember.
Sanya, Panya, and what else?
Sanya, chitta, and vinyana,
Vinyana.
and panya. Sanya is like the
Vinyana,
child.
Chakku vinyana,
The child who
Sutta vinyana.
Sanya is like the child who sees the gold coins. Vinyana is like the adult who knows that it is gold coins. The kid doesn't know it is coins. It's just something glittery. And Panya sees the value of those coins.
Is that from a sutta?
Right. ใช่ที่เหรียญกระสาจบ
Your glass. You want more?
เจ้าสำนักเหรอ
คอยบริการ
Today's Roti's last
Last
day
day
after
here
yeah,
Thailand.
for some time.
Also Panya.
Also Panya, no?
คุณภายหน้าวันพุธค่ะ
เหมือนกันนี่ก็ไปไม่
จะ
ไป
ไปวันพุธสองคนไปวันพุธ
By one suit.
Yours?
So today is your last day here right
For a while.
Next Saturday, Robert is going to be here.
Oh.
Could I ask more about the Banyati? Because I once heard that there are 6 kinds of Banyati, right? Am I wrong or am I right? And what are the other kinds of Banyati? Could anyone give some explanation for me? Or I don't know what. Or I'm wrong.
I like concept.
It's
Concept is a panyati.
okay.
Yeah, there are different types. In Ajarn's book, panyati, like the word panya, are those things which make known. They make known. So, like we've talked a little bit about saddha panyati and atta panyati earlier on. There are other types of panyati too, like panyatis like rupa. Rupa is a panyati, but it represents a reality. But a tree, for example, is also panyati, but it represents a non-reality. So it's different ideas that are conveyed by panyati, those which make known. help us to. They are those which help us to understand, and it's important to understand what's real in this moment and what's not real. So in the Dhamma we have many different types of paññattis, and sometimes they're mixed up, and like an example given in Ajarn's book is like the Arahata's Iti powers, or no, the kings. I'm trying to think of some examples, so because sometimes they're together. So we have to think carefully and consider carefully about what paññattis are real, like rupa or nama. They're both paññatti, but they both represent realities, and other things which represent non-realities. So it's important. Yeah, they are those, like paññā, they are those which make known. Conventionally speaking, samutti satya, and those which make known paramatta satya. So it helps us to build an intellectual understanding of the Dhamma. And sometimes people who sometimes even may call themselves Buddhists, and we've spoken about this before, do not understand the difference between concept and reality. And I'd never heard about this until I met Ajarn and started to read her books. You know, I went to different meditation places, and they never talked about paññatti or concept and reality. It was just about something that I should do, which is really, I see now in retrospect, not very helpful. So the Dhamma is very, very precise and very careful, in the sense that we have to consider carefully, and understanding of concept and reality and paññatti and all these other different concepts are important things to understand correctly, so that, and this is what we call parayatti, so that helps us to build a foundation of understanding, which will lead on to what we talked about last week, things like Upanasya Gochara and so on. So we can, because Upanasya Gochara, although that talks about a reality, is also a concept. So we have to understand what that is, a concept that can represent a reality also. So that's the foundation of the Dhamma. We can build upon little by little, when we with good friends and wise teacher, to help us understand what the Dhamma is all about.
In the last week, I've been having a discussion in the internet with Nina and Sarah. They say that the object of thinking is usually a concept, but not always. So I don't agree with that, but they explain that it's not always a concept, because sometimes it's a reality. So I don't understand that, and I also don't agree why the object of thinking is usually a concept, but not always.
That's why we have to understand what is thinking.
Are you asking?
Anyone? Yeah. What is thinking? What cetasika, or what is thinking?
Well, I think thinking is basically everything except the Tavara.
Panchavinyana.
Right.
Yeah. But when we talk precisely about the reality, whether it is citta or cetasika, what is that? Which things?
It's a cetasika.
What cetasika?
Well, it can be vitaka and...
Vichara.
But you also have vichara.
And vitaka can experience reality. because it can perform the function of Sampatichana and Sandhara from then on. But when it's through five senses, we don't think that it's thinking. But through mind, or we take it as thinking. And it is Vitakka which thinks. So it depends what we are talking about, whether we're talking about the thinking in the mind or process, or the thinking cetasika, the Vitakka cetasika. But usually people just talk about thinking as mind.
I think that's what this discussion is about. So according to Intl.Discussion, I think.
You saw it?
No, I'm just basing on what you just
They're
told.
talking about thinking through mind
Mind
only.
Only.
So the mind can experience the object which is experienced by the sense door. After it experienced sense door, and then the mind door follow, experience the same object, but not the real one.
The nimitta.
But it's like the what you call.
Photocopy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it. And would it be that it has to be like that? That before there is thinking about concepts, there has to be mind or that experiences the photocopy of rupa.
Yeah.
But why is it?
And whatever which cannot be experienced through the sense door can be experienced through mind door. Or the other reality which cannot be experienced through mind, through sense door, has to be experienced through mind door.
So that object can be realities as well.
Yes. So
Not only
mind door can
concepts.
experience anything. Nibbana. But not daily life. When it's daily life, it's the same object as a sense door, because it follows the sense door.
I'm sorry, I'm still a little bit confused about the photocopy moment. Does it really, I mean, is it the
Can you tell the
cons-
difference
Sorry.
between the object through experience through mind door and sense door?
Cannot.
Mm-hmm.
Cannot.
And it's not so important how you label it, photocopy or nimitta, or sometimes after image or mark. You can use lots of words. These are different concepts, different aspects of panyati. But there can be the understanding that knows it without thinking in words about it. Panya can know that reality little by little.
But even if it's not panya, it has to be like that for even with loka, with anything. That following the sense door, there's the mind door.
That's what's the photocopy.
That's the
You can see it in every process of chitta, right?
Yes.
Viti chitta.
Viti chitta.
So it's just the vijnana knows the object directly, and then the next moment is already mind or process. So that mind or process is a photocopy of the sense object.
But that moment is not yet just a concept, but because it's just come after, really immediately after the sense door.
So, through what doorway now?
Mind door, I think.
So that's not a concept then, Ajarn. The first moment after.
Yes, it is.
It is.
It is concept, because Ajarn says that if it's not reality, then it must be concept. But it's not concept as in something.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. That's what I mean when it's not the pancha vijnana, then all the other objects have to be concepts.
So that's also correct, isn't it, Ajarn? If it is not a reality, if it
A pancha vijnana,
The whole process, not just the Chakkunyana or something.
the whole process.
The whole process.
The whole process. and that has the rupa as object. Whereas once it's the mind door, it's no more a reality, it has to be concept, which is the object. Isn't it? Even at the first moment after the sense door, at the first moment after the Vithijita, at the Javana, the first Javana has concept as reality.
When it's not reality, it is concept.
So even what we call photocopy is not reality, it's concept.
Yes, that's why we call photocopy.
So the nimitta
Photocopy concept.
is a the nimitta of
So when
the object is a concept?
So it depends again what you're...
When it's not reality.
but so when is the object of thinking a reality then? Never.
Object of thinking, it's not a reality. But it depends again what that discussion is about. Because you didn't know about the concept of photocopy before this, right?
No, I didn't.
You did. So you were referring to photocopy.
Yeah, I'm just verifying.
Oh,
I think
okay.
I
I'm just verifying that the object of
The photocopy is the concept. That's what you're trying to
no, I'm verifying that the object of every chitta except the 5 pancha vijnana, the object of all those chittas has to be a concept.
In the mind,
mind door.
Because it's photocopy, not the...
Right, but isn't
but the
if
mind
it's
can experience Dhamma like apotatu. For us.
Oh, that's
Like Lopa.
different.
So
That's
duality
different.
Like Lopa.
That's
No,
different
that's
because
different,
he's
yeah.
talking about now about
The mind
understanding
process.
arises at the
No.
mind door. Satipatthana, it can go know anything. It can
No,
go,
but you're not talking about Satipatthana.
no, he's talking.
He's talking about knowing.
You said that the mind can only experience concept, politics, and what you mean. But actually, it can experience other
reality is
realities
also.
too. Yeah.
But
Like,
we don't talk about that.
we're not talking about
Okay.
that. That's not the.
Why we're not talking about that?
I think he's talking about
Just-
Because I thought your discussion was about
The
the
thinking.
the
No,
the
thinking only the concept.
yeah, thinking is only concept. If it's not thinking and we're talking about satipatthana, then it has reality as concept. Because at the moment of satipatthana, anything can be object.
Right.
Feeling can be object. The thinking itself can be object. The chitta can be object. The lopa can be object, and those are realities. And that's mind door.
But when there is no satipatthana, the loba cannot be an object.
That's what your argument. You say it cannot be. If it's mind door, it has to be the photocopy of lopa or the concept of lopa.
So you're saying that but when there is satipatthana, you're knowing loba, that knowing is not a concept.
That's not a concept.
Or the concept of loba.
Or it can be the concept of lopa, but it can also be characteristic of lopa, the reality of lopa.
Yeah, that's what I'm a little confused about that because that's a mind object. In that case, loba is a mind object. So if you know loba as a reality, then it's not a concept.
Right, well, just a minute ago,
What about cohesion?
Cohesion can be known with wisdom. It's not experienced through the body sense, and it can be understood by panya of a high level.
It's true.
Yeah.
what about the object of the mind door process following a sense door process would be the nimitta of the reality, the object of the sense door process. Yes? Seeing, the seeing sees visual object. So that's the object in the sense door process. It moves on to the mind door process.
It has fallen away.
It has fallen. The seeing has fallen away.
And the visible object has fallen away. too.
Yes, it has, but is not the nimitta what is known in that mind door process, the following mind door process, and it's the nimitta of the reality that has fallen away?
Who can tell the difference now between the sense door and the mind door process?
I no, there would be a high degree of panya that would know that.
Even that, so fast.
Right, right. So, I'm still confused, Roti, with what you were talking about. Whether the
And confusion is a reality.
yes, yes, it is.
So when you know confusion without the self, that's when it becomes a reality. I mean, not becomes that's why when it's known as a reality, not as a concept.
When will reality appear as it is?
That means without a self. That's how it is, without a self. ใช่ไหมท่านอาจารย์ครับ
When will the Dhamma reality be object?
One thing for sure, one correct answer is no fixed time.
What does that mean?
No fixed time, it can happen anytime, but by conditions. So your question, Ajarn, is when do you mean
Dhamma is the object.
when the conditions are right? Isn't that the correct answer?
When
A nama is the
object.
of reality of wisdom. When there's satipatthana, but of course the wisdom is not at the level of vipassana that knows the difference between nama and rupa, but it has to start with knowing the characteristic of nama
But
and
the
rupa.
satipatthana is not the moment of vipassana
No, it is
yet.
not. No.
This is the difference. The nama, which is the object of satipatthana, is not the level of vipassana jnana.
And the answer is that because right now sense door covers up mind door, but at that time the mind door appears.
By then, no doubt about mind door at all. But now, nobody can tell which moment is sense door and mind door.
So, Roti, do you know or understand the answer to your initial question?
What was my initial question?
That was the exchange you were having with Sarah and Nina. But whether realities can be object in a mind door process.
Always concepts.
Or always concepts.
So can we say that mind or process is thinking? Can we use the word thinking for mind or process?
So, it depends on what you mean by thinking.
Yeah. Because what the phrase that Nina wrote was that the object of thinking is usually a concept. So that's I wrote to Nina and I asked her, why do you say usually and not always? That's how the discussion started, right? Yeah.
But can we say that the moment of satipatthana, it has vitakka and a very important factor. So that is also thinking. Can we say that because it has vitakka?
So, what is meant by thinking?
Again, this was your original answer. It depends on what we mean by thinking. Is it just moments when there is vitakka as against when there is no vitakka, or do we mean mind door when concept is the object? So it depends. If we are saying when we refer to moments when concept is the object, then of course satipatthana is not thinking. But if we say when Vitakka is there, then at Satipatthana there's Vitakka also.
Vitakka can arise through the 6 doorways.
And we sometimes call Vitakka a factor of the Eightfold Path as right thinking. Is that correct? Is
After
right
seeing, is there thinking?
after seeing, you mean Santirana, Sampatichana? Oh, there's no thinking.
There's Vitakka there.
There's
Yes.
Vitakka.
Yeah.
So we have to understand the function and the characteristic of Vitakka as it is.
I think we can say that there is a touching of the object.
Mhm.
So right thinking is not the right word for.
Not the right word
Not
at all.
in that word as we understand it. It's sometimes translated as right application, but it doesn't really matter what word you use. It's the important thing is to understand what that word means. So and even if we say, oh, it means touching the object, you can still have a wrong understanding of what that means. So it's important to have the correct understanding. I think it becomes clearer, though, that as Ajarn has pointed out, that after Panchavinyana has fallen away with Sampatichana, there is Vitakka, there is a kind of what we might call touching of the object. And how we understand that will depend upon our level of understanding.
And what we are thinking about.
Touch.
Touch.
Touch. Touch. See?
Even the word touch, we have to understand.
Yeah,
what it
you have
means.
to explain it.
It's very hard to explain, but I remember.
Ajarn just said we're all very more.
We're very small. I remember in Poland, way back, you were talking about Pasa and Vitakka. And you referred to Pasa, contact, as just and touching, and Vitakka as more.
So not just Passa to be factor for the Eightfold Path, it has to be the Vitakka. And it's not thinking,
It's not thinking.
it's touch.
Is what? But in which moment does Vitakka becomes a factor? Becomes a factor for the.
Samma Sankappa.
Yeah, but what happens to the Vitakka in order to become a factor for enlightenment?
After seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching without Vitakka, it can experience the same object as the 5 objects. It needs Vitakka.
Yes, but Ajarn is saying that Samma Sankappa.
Is what Cetasika? Vitakka Cetasika.
But in which moment does it become Samma?
With Panya. Touch with Panya.
Oh,
Always with Panya when it is Makka.
And it's the Chavana, not the Sampatichana. Right?
From then on, from Sampatichana.
but some,
Except the 10, that's all.
but there is Vitakka with Sampatichana.
Right. But that's not
That's
Samma
Sankappa.
Sankappa.
No,
That's
no,
not
no, no, no. So the ordinary, everyday thinking, when it is not Samma,
But ordinary everyday.
well, it's not.
Ordinary
It's not like
everyday
my-
thinking is already pretty vague
Yes,
term.
exactly.
The
Exactly.
thing is that there is Vitakka always, except the 5 Panchavinyana and some jhana. Jhana,
The
correct?
second one.
The second. Right.
And it always means touching. So-
Always.
Always. So we call it thinking. Why?
Through
Is
mind
that's-
door.
It's through the because it's through
Because
the
of
mind
Bhikkhu
door.
Bodhi. Or somebody like that.
Because
No.
of what?
Because some translator.
No. I think because Ajarn, because it plays a very important part in the thinking, right? Vitakka.
Without Vitakka, can there be such moments?
No. No.
and also vichara.
They arise together.
But we know that there can be thinking as in the levels of jhana when vichara is first not there. There's only vitaka.
No,
It's still thinking. No, first vichara has to go, then vitaka.
No.
The other way around.
Yeah, the other way around.
Vitaka and then vichara.
Oh, really? Ah.
There can be vichara without vitaka.
There can be vichara without vitaka. Ah.
Sorry,
That
do we
sounds-
call vichara also touching or no?
Chara means
No.
more
Different
of a
function.
holding.
Holding.
Yeah.
So
After touching.
vitaka touches and
Vichara
vichara
holds.
holds. All right.
Chara.
And passa touch.
That's
also touch.
Contact.
Contact. Okay.
Contact, touch, and hold.
Now we got it.
Skin. When we talk about the vitaka thinking with memory, you remember we talk about vijnana, sanya, and the panya. But with thinking, always with memory or sanya, it's like a concept or story. But when satipatthana or with panya, with vitaka, that was the memory mark in the reality.
But there can be different levels of panya. And there's panya even at the level of pariyati. So, what do you say?
Conceptual,
Hmm.
like a pariyati. We talk about tira sanya. Remember tira sanya.
Tira sanya.
What is this?
Firm.
Firm.
Firm memory.
Whatever that means.
Another word for vichara is sometimes called sustained thinking. So we've got initial thinking and sustained thinking. But again, it's coming back to understanding the reality of the present moment. The labeling can be helpful, but it's not what the path is all about. And it's important to get that understood correctly. The words are helpful, but they're not vital. Yeah, they sometimes can get in the way, but they're useful. We need language. You know, like we were talking about concepts before. We always need to hear the Dhamma and consider it carefully, like Sariputta, when he heard those words, you know, Ye Dhamma, He Tupa Pawa, and he became Sotapanna. So that was the catalyst for him, with his accumulated panya from past lives, that he understood what Asaji meant. And it's actually just, I was thinking about it recently, that he always, Sariputta, always, every day, he paid respect to Asaji because he heard those words.
So you can see that the words are also important. I mean, if Asaji said the apple grows on a tree, it would be meaningless. So the words are also important. The problem is mostly it's thought about without understanding and often with ignorance and attachment.
And surely because he went away quickly to share it with his friend, Kolita. Yeah, and he understood, but when he went to share with his teacher Sanjaya, Balatabutta, he wasn't interested. He thought he just wasn't interested. So it's going to depend upon when some people hear those words, and I've read them many times and thought, how did he do that? But because there is not the right conditions yet for us, we have to continue attending wisely to what is heard. you know.
And what you're reminding us is that it's not the question of hearing the word again and again, but to attend to the reality.
Yeah. But
and whatever reality no one chooses, and all realities, not just suppose somebody got enlightened to Buddha's words about seeing being impermanent. It doesn't mean we try to understand seeing, but actually anything that appears now.
True.
So that's why accumulation is so important.
Pakatu Panisaya.
Like yesterday in Facebook, I post a picture of something that Jonathan wrote, that it talks about things like there's no self, and things like there are no things, no persons, and I posted because I thought it was so interesting. but then today when I woke up today and I saw the post in Facebook, then I thought about all my friends that I have in Facebook. Many of them will think that I'm just crazy. That I'm crazy because when they read things like there's no things, no people, when they will read that, they will think that I'm, like I'm
But if one amongst those had the accumulations, they'll probably write back to you and ask, hey, what was that you're talking about?
Yeah, that's true. Oh, totally.
Yeah, there were a few that were very surprised and liked it.
Yeah, and that's why the Buddha, he knew when to speak to the right person. He didn't waste his time with some people because he knew that they wouldn't understand what he was talking about. So he was very, very careful. He was careful. I always think of the Upali Sutta, where the Buddha sort of systematically dismantled the Nigantha's belief about Dandani or Kamma, but he was doing that to help this other fellow who became enlightened, who did understand. So sometimes he would go in sort of a back room method or a back door method, because he knew that the fellow who came to see him wouldn't understand it. But he knew that fellow, when he went back to see went back to see his teacher, his name was Nigantha Nataputta, he would relay back to him, and then Upali would become very interested in wanting to understand, or he wanted to discount the Buddha, but he went back and he listened to the Buddha and he thought, this is what you mean. But the Buddha didn't go into those details with the other fellow. It's very, very interesting sutta where, the Buddha, because the Niganthas literally mean, Nigantha means they believe they're without Gantha. Gantha is a bond, a knot. They call themselves those without bonds. But the Buddha, that was what they called themselves, Niganthas. But they, of course, did have many, many bonds. They were thick with bonds. Their bonds were very strong. The Buddha, they were. In the Buddha's time, there were these different teachers, and one of the different teachers was called Nigantha Nataputta. Nigantha means no bonds. Nigantha. Gantha is a
no bonds.
No bond, or like a connection. A bond is like a
almost like no attachment.
Yeah, that's what they were saying. They said they weren't attached to anything.
Right.
But the Buddha knew that was nonsense. But he didn't tell that to them. But he knew when to speak to some of the disciples of Nigantha, or one of the disciples in particular. And he shared with them many very graphic examples, telling him why it's the mind that's most important, not what we do physically. And he graphically sort of undercut the Nigantha philosophy just more. And Upali, that's when because I was reading that word recently, Nasajan, because it comes from the Pali word acharyam, which means wonderful. He knew straight away. Acharyam, he said, he knew this, of course, is the truth. He knew that when the Buddha spoke to him, and he became a follower of the Buddha.
Ajarn, I'm thinking The Dhamma is the greatest protection.
Yes, it is Araka Kojra.
Acharyam Nasaja.
So it's a protection in the form of accumulation, right, Ajahn?
From evil.
Yeah, but it's in the form of accumulation. It's like when you hear a Dhamma word and right?
But also, what I'm pointing to is that without the Dhamma, your accumulations are not going to help you. I mean, you have to hear the Dhamma. So,
yeah, but without without the accumulations, you cannot listen.
You cannot understand. But
Yeah.
also, the other aspect is that without hearing the Dhamma, there's no way.
There's no.
Oh, there's
No
no
way
way
out.
to activate the
No,
accumulations.
there's no way for the accumulations to
get stronger. That's true.
No, not only to get stronger, but to get activated.
Accumulated enough to understand now. So we understand what's meant by accumulation. Without it, without hearing, without priyati, no conditions for patipati.
I've said this so many times, and the more one hears and the more one thinks one understands, the more one knows that one doesn't really understand a lot yet, and there is much more to understand.
And I think that's that's wisdom, to know that, that to know how little we know, and there's a long way to go. That's wisdom.
So to think that you know a lot is not wisdom.
Sorry, could I get back to the? Yes, no, I mean the well, you might have answered already the question, but I couldn't catch up. Can the nama be an object of thinking with akusala cetasikas? I mean, akusala thinking. Can the nama as a reality be an object?
All the time, feeling.
Like, for example, feeling like vedana. Okay.
Can seeing be the object?
Yes, can.
So can thinking?
Can. Yes. All right. Thank you very much.
What can be object of right understanding now?
Anything, I mean, yes, anything, which is reality.
No selection.
No selections. We can never select any Dhamma to be an object.
Rupa and Nama.
Yeah, both Rupa and Nama.
Kusala and akusala.
Because when we select, we contradict the Dhamma, we go against the Dhamma. It's not understanding, it's wrong understanding.
Can you say more? Can you say more? I want to hear more.
Okay, when we say, when I said we contradict Dhamma when we think we can select, because we have this idea that there's a self who can do this or that, can develop understanding if they do this or if they do that. So it's about learning to understand the reality which appears, not directing understanding to this or that object, because they're all conditioned and they depend upon the accumulations of panya to slowly begin to understand those realities, which takes a lot of patience and careful attending over many lifetimes, in this lifetime and the past, to help develop the saddha to begin to more appreciate what the right path is. That takes time. And the more we have the idea that there's a self who can direct it, that will get in the way, that will hinder, that will obfuscate the path for us in a very subtle way, but sometimes for a wise person, when they're looking on, they'll see that's very damaging.
You say that will get in the path, in the way, like in the future, but it's already there.
Yes.
It's already blocking the path.
Totally.
Right? That's exactly what is blocking the path. The idea that one can do something.
It's very subtle, and it's very insidious. It's sort of insidious.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very hidden. But because ditthi is a very bad habit that hides away, and the person who's developing understanding is in the wrong way can easily be tricked by that ditthi. It's very easy to be deceived by that, and you can have all these other people around you.
We are deceived by that.
Yes, we are, but I'm saying that we can have many unhelpful friends who will collude with our misunderstanding about Dhamma, and so it will get greater, and then we'll be attracted to those people. So it accumulates. Wrong understanding is very dangerous in that sense, because it goes from bad to worse over lifetimes, and we don't notice it because it seems like it's right.
But it still comes down to, as Roti is pointing out, that it's wrong when it's there.
It's wrong when
it is the wrong path when it's there. Not that it can lead to the wrong, not something that you think in terms of the future. What ditthi can in the future is bad for the future, but it's there already. And it's already arisen, and it's now. Yeah. And we can see that although ignorance darkens, we can see that the wrong path is actually taking one away always from the possibility of understanding now, because now has already arisen and it's gone. So the idea of catching another moment is missing the point, because now has already arisen by conditions and fallen away.
And as Ajarn has often said, that ignorance covers over, it hides, so that there is an inability to see that ignorance. So it makes it even more tricky, and that's what's so important, to be with the wise person, and that's not easy, to meet somebody like Ajarn, and then to keep on attending and considering, like earlier today, most of the time we do not attend wisely to what we hear. Like I was listening to Kunjoy this earlier on, talking about her father, about what he was saying, because he continually attends to the wrong thing, which will lead him more and more away to thinking unhelpful ways. And this happens with a lot of things that we hear on the news. The more we think about them in an unhelpful way, it leads to unhelpful behaviour by way of mind. And then when it gets strong enough, we can say and do things that are very dangerous.
But I don't see any difference between news and now. I mean, you can hear the news and understand what's appearing, and now you can be with wise friends and not understand what's appearing.
Totally, I agree. I'm just saying, I was giving an example there that if we do not attend wisely to what the present moment is about, and if we attend wisely because of our unfortunate accumulations, about wrong concepts essentially. And I'm thinking about what Kunjoy says, and I don't want to talk about that. But it happens a lot. You know, at the conventional level, how wrong understanding accumulates in very destructive ways and leads people to do and say very foolish things. And then, conventionally speaking, and then of course there are what we're talking about here, people who misunderstand the Dhamma, and then they go more and more wrong because of that wrong understanding. Yes, surely.
Yeah, sure. I agree with that. It's the people who are involved in everyday akusala is one thing, akusala, you know, but to misunderstand the Dhamma is the worst. And to misunderstand and then to, you know, relay that to other people is worse. Yeah.
And of course, I think the great protection of the Dhamma comes is that even if you have poor understanding, conventionally speaking, about what's going on in the world, the more your understanding of Dhamma grows, the less you'll be concerned about what the world is saying about what's happening out there. Because there'll always be crazy things happening out in the world.
Because what's important is to understand what appears. So even if you're not reading the papers, but you're thinking about your yesterday and tomorrow, it's still being same thing.
I can see that my father accumulates akusala, upanisaya, something like that, the akusala accumulation, by thinking that when he heard or read the line, the social media about the Muslim that attacks Buddhism, he hates Muslim. And even I explained him that when you hate the Muslim, that's the bad, the hatred, something like that. That is not kusala.
And it's very dangerous. Right. Any type of thinking like that, because eventually can lead to you saying and doing very bad things.
Right, so and his face expresses so bad. Yeah, right.
That's right. So we can see the danger of akusala at that level, and how unfortunate that is, and how dangerous sometimes social media can be. And that tells us about what bad friends can do to us. If we're not with the wise friend, we so easily can be captured by that kind of nonsense.
Ajarn, is there any difference between being identifying yourself as a Buddhist and being attached to the idea of being a Buddhist, or being attached to your own family? It's the same, isn't it? Some people will get angry that people of other religions are attacking your religion. Some people, they don't think about that, but they are afraid that somebody is doing something to my son, to my wife. It's the same thing, isn't it?
And for most of the time, they forgot considering whether the news is fake or not as well, because it comes always with money, right?
No, I think the kilesa is just looking for an excuse.
Yes, exactly.
And because we have the self, and it's a fear that happening, right? When someone attacks us, or me, or I, or my family, that's a fear.
Yeah, I think the more we can appreciate the great value of the Dhamma, and how, as we talked about to some extent today and some extent last week, about developing a Upanishya Gochara, which can lead on to protection, to lead on to being even stronger, the less inclined we will be, and certainly in this life, to do that. But there are the unfortunate accumulations of ditthi that are there still. And so, in following lives, we are vulnerable, and we see the great advantage of Dhamma to keep developing patiently, so that one day there will be less and less akusala and more understanding, which takes time. But samsara is dangerous. Samsara is dangerous.
Ajarn, would it be correct to conclude that our biggest responsibility is to have right understanding? Otherwise, we're just not helping ourselves and not helping other people.
So what's the best thing?
Right understanding.
Are you Buddhist? Who is Buddhist?
Is right understanding.
Buddhist is not people nor country nor.
Perhaps that's a good example of what we were talking about earlier on. You asked about, concepts and realities and paññatti. A Buddhist is just a paññatti, it's just a concept, it's just an idea. It's just thinking about a non-reality, really. There's no such reality as Buddhist. It's just an idea. So the more we can understand what's real and what's not real.
But we can use the word to point to Panya also. Right, since we are using the word already, so we can always use it in a fruitful way to point to the reality of understanding, because that's the only way to counter the wrong understanding. Because if you want to call yourself a Buddhist, then it has to be right understanding that qualifies for being a Buddhist.
It's true, but we know mostly that people who identify themselves as Buddhists, it's really just a story, and there is not much understanding, if any, of the realities that really the Dhamma is comprised of. So people may say they're a Buddhist, but ultimately it'll just be a word, a meaningless word. And the more the understanding can develop, that will give it meaning, will give the Dhamma meaning. Without that understanding, it's just almost useless.
So, is Thailand a Buddhist country?
No, Thailand is not real, so in that context, there's no Buddhist or no Buddhist Thailand. But if you're asking, is there right understanding amongst people we meet every day, I think very few. And it's hard. The Dhamma is hard to find.
It's so subtle.
But still, when Ajarn says, is Thailand a Buddhist country, I still think that there is, you can see a difference you can see a difference when it's a Buddhist.
What is it that you're seeing? See, the thing is that a lot of people appreciate, Thailand is a country where people are smiling all the time and happy-go-lucky and things like that, and they say, it must be the influence of Buddhism, but they don't have any clue about Buddhism. So what you're seeing is the same way as they're seeing, but it still comes down to whether there's understanding through discussions, and you have to have more understanding.
I agree and I don't agree, because I think there is something special about Thailand. I do think the Dhamma has got deep roots here, and I do feel that those roots show in some ways, like Kunwati.
You mean to say someone who was born in 1965
I know what you're going to say.
in Thailand, and he's developed a habit same as other people around him, it's because he has some understanding.
Not some understanding, but there's a certain attitude.
But he doesn't have any understanding.
No, but he absorbs it from the
Nothing
society.
to do with understanding.
I think there is understanding,
has to do
and there is. I think there is understanding, and there is understanding, and there is understanding, and there is understanding.
So there's no Thailand.
So can we say that Thailand is wrong Buddhist?
If I were
Country?
to choose, I'll say it's wrong.
Because true Buddhist,
especially since Sundara and Roti getting the impression that it is what it is because of Buddhism, it's very, very misleading.
So what
It's
do you
very
think?
misleading.
So what do you think about a country when that the books in that country teach that there's no difference between good and bad?
Right, like let's say,
And even though-
let's say a Muslim country, right? A Muslim country, you're saying that country teaches like that, teaches like that because of their teachings. But I meet Muslim people every day, and they are not. Each are different.
Sounds like we can say that Thailand is a country where the true meaning of Buddhism is totally misunderstood.
All over the world, not only Thailand.
Right. But I think Thailand falls into that category as well. And maybe it's worse because people think they're good Buddhists.
Yeah. Because as Ajarn would remind us, the religion is not destroyed through other people, other forces, but within the Buddhist community. I mean, it is people who misunderstand and consider them Buddhists who can destroy the religion. It's wrong understanding that destroys religion.
Well, I still feel more comfortable living in a country.
Yes.
That
We all are comfortable.
living in a country that wrongly understands Buddhism.
No, I don't know that. I know, but I like
Than
Thailand.
living in
I'm
another
very attached
kind.
to Thailand, but not because it's Buddhist. Because
But
it's just
the influence is there. There's some kind of
there's no
influence.
bad influence in good influence. Look at the Watts. You won't see. What does it remind you of? The Watts.
But I still prefer a Wat than a Christian temple where they're full of rules.
And I'm just saying that those Watts are destroying the religion. The Christian are not destroying the religion.
Oh, they may be true. No, them. They aren't destroying Buddhism, but they're doing a good job of their own.
Yeah, they're destroying the religion. I agree, but there's still, you can see the kusala effects of the Buddha's words in the society in
Like
general.
other countries. Like other countries.
Like which countries?
India. You look at India.
Okay.
Well,
Christian country.
Christian countries.
What in those countries?
Generosity.
They're kind people, nice people everywhere.
Yeah,
Japanese, like I heard people
like
who
the
say
Inquisition. You know the Inquisition? Nothing like that ever happened in a Buddhist country. Things like a
Corruptions.
no Inquisition is something that happened in the 15th century.
Spanish Inquisition.
In the name of the religion, they will kill and torture people.
So how is Burma actually? They're doing a lot of things to Muslims. Is that a good country?
You can't say whether a country is good or bad. I think you can only.
It's good or bad, but there are tendencies and levels of aggression, levels of evilness.
And also it depends on the experience of one, because I've been living in Japan for like 4 years, and I didn't really how can I say, get a lot of generosity there. That's because my akusala results maybe it must have been, but well, then I don't like Japan because of my experience there, and that's why I came back to Thailand. When I can speak or understand those people, but well, it's because of my experience there. And well, I think if you come to Thailand and you are really unfortunate to meet only bad Thai people, then you're gonna hate Thailand as well. It's the same thing.
Like many foreigners, tourists. Tourists, those who come here with some expectations and then disappointed.
What is to be blamed is ngo.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
What is to be blind is no.
More.
No. It's a
Stupidity.
Thai word.
Foolishness.
Ignorance.
Foolishness.
Yeah.
Foolishness. The word. It's full.
Okay.